Greetings YouTube, it's Alan, and I'm back here with a budget deck tech for Fi, specifically a combo Fi deck that I've been playing and testing a lot with recently. This deck is really fun, and if there was a new player or someone that didn't want to spend too much money into the game yet, this is definitely the deck I would recommend. The deck only has 13 Majestics, it runs no legendaries, and the rest are rares and commons. So, before we get into the deck tech, please like, comment, subscribe. I would appreciate that a lot. And so let's get right into it. So the point of this deck is very simple. You have Mask of the Pouncing Lynx, Stubby Hammers, Vest of the First Fist. These three equipment pieces are basically there to facilitate your big combo turn. And when testing with this deck, I wouldn't say consistently, but there are often games where I will do 30, 40 plus damage. So this is a really fun deck to play. On the other hand, though, this deck is very fragile. If you're against an opponent like a Bravo or a Lexi, or even decks that run like CNC or Erase Face, you will definitely have a hard time. And that's what a lot of the more expensive cards help with, your worst matchups. But I would say this deck sort of has a good time into other aggro decks, decks that don't have too much disruption, so things like Briar, the Fi Mirror, maybe Katsu, things like that. For the most part, you will just be taking all the damage and coming right back with as much as possible. So let's get into the deck. We have 3 Belittles and 2 Minnowisms. This is just a really good aggro card, especially when most of the cards in your deck are 3 or less base attack. Blaze Headlong. This is just like a better Scar for a Scar. We have Brand with Cinderclaw. This is just a 0 for 3 go again. In the blue, I decided to run it because it synergizes very well with Belittle. If you can play Brand with Cinderclaw into Belittle, you turn Belittle into a Draconic Chain Link. 3 Flame Call Awakening. These are to search out your Phoenix Flames. It's a very good card. Inflame, I was kind of off and off on, but I'm starting to like it more because even though it's just a 1 go again, get a Phoenix Flame, so release 2 on your combo turn. With Stubby Hammers, it's 2 and 2, and it also synergizes well with Salt the Wound by having more attacks to hit. Lava Burst is an alternate to Salt the Wound. There are some cases where Lava Burst will actually deal more damage than Salt the Wound if you combine it with things like Spreading Flame. So whenever there are only 2 targets for Mask of the Pouncing Lynx in this deck, and that's Lava Burst and Salt the Wound. So as you're going off on your big combo turn, you can decide which one does more damage and go from there. Or if you draw into Salt the Wound and you already have it, you can links into Lava Burst, play Lava Burst, Snapdragons, and then end the chain with Salt the Wound. It's very nice. Lava Vein Loyalty, another 0 for 3 go again. This one requires you to have a different card to start the chain, a different Draconic card, but it blocks for 3. That's why I decided to add the blues in. 3 Phoenix Flames, of course. These one starts in your grave. This card is just very, very good. It's basically what enables Fi to be what he is. Mounting Anger. This is the only 1 for 4 that I run in the deck, simply because there are no. If there was another 0 for 3 red Draconic go again, I would run it. But since there isn't, I decided the best one in this deck is probably Mounting Anger. The reason is because banishing. If you play this on your first chain link, you can banish a card with 0 cost from your hand, which most of the cards in the deck are, and it gains +1. So this is essentially a 1 for 5, which is really nice. Now let's go into our first Majestic. We have Phoenix Form. If you control 1 or more Phoenix Flames, Phoenix Form has go again. 2 or more, it has +2. If you control 3 or more, when this hits a hero, draw 3 cards. So Phoenix Form is really great because for the most part, you can just run it as a 0 for 5 go again. That's already insanely good, and it blocks for 3. I haven't really been able to consistently get the third Phoenix Flame and Phoenix Form at the same time, but it's still possible, and it would extend your turn like crazy. I wouldn't be surprised if on a combo turn, if you were able to get this off and draw 3 more cards, you would do maybe like 50 plus damage. Rising Resentment, another red 0 for 3 go again. Nothing too much to say here. The effect doesn't really matter too much for this deck, mostly because even if you play this on like Chainlink 1 and you banish, or if you play this on Chainlink 2, the only card you can really banish that would actually affect your cost would be either Spreading Flames or Mounting Anger. And a lot of times you actually want to start with this because it's a 0 cost and you have nothing else, but it might come in handy sometimes. But for the most part, don't worry too much about the effect of this card. It's mainly just 0 for 3 go again. And I run the blues also just because having a 0 starter is good. Spreading Flames. This is another insane card. I would consider this one of the three main combo pieces. There are three main combo pieces to this deck that I would consider: Spreading Flames, Tomo Firebrand, and Art of War. So Spreading Flames is one of them. It's a 1 for 3 go again, and Draconic attacks you control have +1 while their base is less than the number of Draconic chain links you control. Go again. So this deck can go up to like crazy chain links, like 8, 9, 10. And eventually after like your third chain link, basically everything will have +1. So this is essentially like plus like 6, 7 damage on top of the 3 base, and as a starter, 1 for 3 go again. This card is insane in this deck. Toma Firebrand. Play Toma Firebrand only if you control 4 or more Draconic Chain Link. Draw 2 cards. This is just another combo extender. It's quite easy to get off, assuming you have like 2 cards that cost 0 and a blue. So you'll pitch a blue, maybe play like Ronin Renegade, Rising Resentment, swing with Sword, activate Fi, get a Phoenix Flame back from your grave, and that's already 4 chain links, and you have 1 floating. Toma Firebrand, draw 2. If you have these in conjunction with another combo piece, that's when like the turns can start getting really crazy. We have Ronin Renegade, simple, 0 for 3, red, go again. I don't run the blues for this one just because Rising Resentment is basically the same thing, but strictly better. Art of War. Art of War is basically the most expensive card in the deck. It's running at around $40 to $45 a copy right now. So even though I call this a budget deck, this 3 copies of Art of War for a brand new player can still be a bit expensive, but I think this is a good investment for any new player, just because Art of War is like a staple that goes in so many decks. Specifically, more so in aggro decks like Lexi or Chain previously, or currently Fi. But I think this card is just insane. And instead of buying, one legendary headpiece like Mask of Momentum for Fi, when you don't know if you'll like playing Fi or not, Art of War at least has a little bit more flexibility. And so this is your other combo piece along with Spreading Flames and Tome. And this card is also insane. You'll basically choose Banish, draw 2, and then +1/+1. And then if you're having a chain of like 8 or 9 attacks and you have +1/+1, you have Spreading Flames at the same time, and then you have Stubby Hammers, it just is, the damage starts to get insane. Cinderskin Devotion. I literally only play this because it's a blue block 3. Yeah, that's about it. And then 2 Minnowisms for the Belittle. I decided to run 2 because there are times where you draw into a blue Minnowism and Belittle, and then you can't search anything, so that's unfortunate. And then lastly, we have 1 copy of Salt the Wound. This is your combo finisher that you search out with Mask of the Pouncing Lynx. Or you can... I'm also debating increasing this to 2 copies and maybe dropping a blue somewhere, because drawing into it actually isn't that bad. Even on an average turn where you only attack like, it's basically another Rupture Lava Burst card, and it blocks 3, and it pitches for yellow, so it's pretty good. So let's talk about the basic strategy for this deck. I would say this deck is a go first deck. A lot of times people will say that an aggro deck will want to go second, so you can have tempo. I wouldn't really consider this too much of an aggro deck. Like, in some sense it is, but really it's a combo deck. You have one huge turn that you need to sort of pull off to sort of win the game. So in an aggro mirror, if you're facing against someone with like Mask of Momentum and Shuko and Furnace or Tunic and just more equipment blocks and more consistent damage, more consistent pressure with Mask of Momentum, basically what you're hoping to do is draw into at least 2 of your combo pieces and then go off and try to do as much damage as possible to take all tempo. You don't really need tempo because for the most part, you're just setting up your big combo and doing a little bit of chip damage here and there. And basically, before you die, just go off. So for the most part, I will try to go first because I want to draw into one of these 9 cards and then arsenal it. And then when I draw into another piece, that is when I will basically, pop stubbies and go off. In terms of cards that I didn't include, Breaking Point is another Rupture card. It's a 1 for 5, but this is more disruption than pure damage. So I think if you wanted to run this deck and you could not afford Art of War, I would probably replace it with one of these 2 cards, Breaking Point or Rise from the Ashes. Breaking Point is decent, but the 1 for 5 is somewhat worse than Lava Burst, which is 0 for 5 in a block 3. It has that disruption effect, which can come in handy though, so it gets bonus points there. Rise from the Ashes, I think, is a very good card, but not so much in this deck. You need to play it at the start of the chain. If you draw into it, it breaks your chain, which is unfortunate when you're running things like Spreading Flames or have things like Salt the Wound or Lava Burst for Rupture. So if you draw into it from like Art of War or like Tome of Firebrand mid chain, it's not very good. I also don't like it because yes, you get a Phoenix Flame back, and it's basically a 0 for 4. But for the most part, I like Inflame better because it's also a 0 for 4 on your pop off turn. You can draw into it, and it triggers twice for like Salt the Wound. So I think Rise from the Ashes definitely can also be good. I just think it makes it just a little more difficult, especially if you only have one Phoenix Flame in your grave. Then it doesn't do too much for your game plan. For example, if you have a 4-card hand, but one of them is Rise from the Ashes, or a blue, and then Tome of Firebrand, that's one less chain that you have. So I think this card is good, but I haven't liked it so much in this deck specifically. The games just are super fast for the most part, and I think in a more grindy matchup, this card can be good. But for now, I decided to keep it in the sideboard. So that's the deck so far, and if you liked it, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. In the next 2 days, I will be coming out with gameplay videos for this deck. One against a Fire Mirror match that is using more different equipment like Mask of Momentum, Shuko, Furnace, etc., and another against Prism, because I felt like a lot of people. I've been watching a lot of tier lists or a lot of people talk about the meta, and they think that Prism is going to be a tier 1 deck next format, which I kind of disagree with. I think that Briar, Fi, Katsu, those kind of aggro decks have such free reign now that Starvo is gone. And you can argue, oh, if all the aggro decks come back, then Oldhim will come back, and then Prism will be good again. I think the difference is that last format, Starvo was the most proactive and consistent powerful deck, and Prism had I wouldn't say a winning matchup per se into Starvo, but a decent matchup into Starvo. The difference now is that aggro is going to once again become the proactive, consistent, aggressive decks that don't require too much time or fatigue throughout the tournament. So I expect a lot of people to be playing like Fi, Briar, and those kinds of things. So Oldhim may be a good pick, and Prism may be a good pick if depending on your local meta, but I think just the fact that this like the sort of the centerpiece of the meta will likely revolve around like characters like Briar and Fi. I don't think Prism will be tier 1, but I just wanted to show how much this deck, even a budget version of Fi, can completely dunk on Prism. And so two of the last things I would say is that almost all of this deck is commons and rares, and commons and rares. If you are a new player, I would highly recommend you search into your local community in case they have extra bulk. There's plenty of local players who have tons of extra bulk, and they're willing to give commons and rares to newer players. Just because I don't think that, like you can't, unfortunately, if you don't have that resource, you would have to buy commons and rares on TCG Player. And I think those are kind of just overpriced because it's bulk, honestly. The only majestic equipment is Mask of the Pouncing Lynx, which goes for like a few dollars. And then the big money cards, unfortunately, is 3 Art of Wars. If it's like 45 a piece, that's already looking at $135. And you have 9 Majestics here. The set has not come out yet, so all of the prices are pre-release prices. But currently, every set or all the pre-release or prices have each Majestic at like $750 a card times 9 cards. It's like already $150 plus the like $135 from Art of War. It's already like looking like close to $300. And I know I said this was a budget deck, but I think to start out, you can try playing this deck without the Art of Wars. You definitely will lose much more games without Art of War, unfortunately. That's just how it goes. But I think once the set comes out, I do think these Majestics will drop a bit from $1750. I would try to shoot for like around $10 a card maybe. So you can shoot to get all of these for like $90. Hopefully, I actually don't know how expensive they're going to be, but that was what I would consider a good price, I would say. And the rest of the deck you could probably find for like, even if you needed to buy the commons and rares for like, $20 maybe at the most. So hopefully like $110 without the Art of Wars. And if you're liking the playstyle and you want to just take it to that next level, you have the Art of Wars, which are a good investment for the game. It's a staple. It's gonna hold value and it'll go into a lot of decks. And so lastly, I would say that if you're playing this deck and you enjoy it, I would say that you can definitely look into upgrades like Mask of Momentum, Breeze Rider boots. You have Shuko, and then you also have Tunic or Flamescale Furnace. Those legendary and majestic equipments definitely add a lot of power to the deck, and it also helps with your worst matchups, like for example, like Bravo and Oldham, where they have so much disruption and blocking power that you kind of need just more consistent damage. I think Bravo is definitely a very tough matchup for this deck because of all this is the disruption. But for Oldham, I think this deck can actually somewhat do well just because if they're not pressuring you enough, you can set up with just a huge turn. So that's basically what you're looking to do. And so yeah, that was my deck tech. I believe I covered everything. If you have any questions, please ask in the comments. Once again, like, subscribe, and in the next 2 days, I will be showing you these gameplay videos and in one of them, I do over 40 damage. So stay tuned for that. And I'll see you around.